Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to today's episode on indecision. I'm going to be talking to you about why you're experiencing indecision, what it is costing you, and how to move past it. So, in the previous episodes, I know I've given you a lot of things to think about, right? I've given you information about what your desire really is, right? How to unwind, how to start unwinding without having chips in your hand, right? How to feel more confident in social situations without snacking, and what's creating your feelings, right? How to handle other people. But I know that many of you are still in a place where you're trying to decide if giving your body a break from sugar and flour is something that you really want to do. Okay. Now, it's so common to be unsure. Please know this. I know that I was in this position for such a long time. I took probably my first break from sugar and flour when I was in my 20s, right? And I didn't consume sugar and flour for, I don't know, probably like a year, right? And then I started again, and then I just kept kind of, flip flopping, sugar, no sugar, back and forth, right? And I kept going through my 20s and a little bit into my 30s where I just didn't know what to do. And I would occasionally cut back, but then I would start again. And I was just like so undecided. I had all this indecision about what I should be doing. Now, you guys, here's the problem with indecision, right? It zaps so much time and energy, right? You're endlessly weighing the pros and cons, right? Often not just the pros and cons of right now, but the pros and cons of a future that you envision. And I'll tell you that that future is usually negative, right? And so you stay stuck. Nothing is changing, right? You just keep repeating the same habits over and over again, like you are anguishing over what to do, but nothing is changing, right? So it can feel like you're being productive because you are thinking about it, right? It feels like you are doing something, but you are really not being productive. You are really just staying in place. Here's the problem. You are not moving any closer to feeling better. In fact, I think for most people, being stuck in indecision is one of the most painful things. You have all this energy that you're devoting to trying to figure out something in your life, but nothing is changing. And that uncertainty and that indecision, it doesn't feel great, right? And I think a lot of people really hate being in a place of indecision, but they don't know how to get out of it. So I'm going to talk to you today about the 4 reasons why we get stuck in indecision, why this happens, and how to try to move away from it, because you can. And moving away from indecision will be one of the best and most powerful things that you can do. So the very first reason that people are stuck in indecision is all about the stories that they have about what it will mean to change their eating habits, right? What it will mean to not consume sugar and flour. And I will promise you that those stories are negative, right? If the stories were positive, if they were seeing a better future, they wouldn't be stuck in indecision. They would be making a decision. They would be going after that future. But they are predicting a future that looks kind of bleak, right? They are predicting a future where they're not having fun, where they're always deprived, where they can't join in, right? They have a lot of negative stories, and you may be able to relate to this when you sort of think of a future when you are changing your eating habits and taking a break from sugar and flour. What does that look like? Most people, when I start working with them, will say, well, it looks nice to not have extra weight, and it looks nice to wake up without bloat and not feeling inflammation in my joints, right? And it looks good to spend time and energy throughout the day and evening on something other than overeating. That looks good. But the whole rest of it looks kind of bleak. People would tell me, I know that I can survive without sugar and flour. I don't need to eat sugar and flour. That's not my problem. And I would say this too, right? I didn't need to have them. It's just that the future didn't look like it was going to be any fun. And you have to pay attention to this. If all your stories about what it means not to consume sugar and flour are pointing you in a negative direction, well, then I promise you that you are going to continue to be stuck in indecision. We also get stuck in this idea that we have to make a decision for the rest of our life, right? That for me was so incredibly daunting. It was really daunting to say that, in my 30s, oh my goodness, I'm making a decision that is going to apply when I'm in my 80s as well, right? I think that is too daunting for people, and I will tell you, even today, I have not made a decision about what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Okay. I know what I'm doing right now. And right now, because I have done this work and I truly don't desire sugar and flour anymore, it doesn't have that much appeal to me. But I think this idea that you have to make a decision forever, that if you're going to stop, you have to stop forever, I think it's too daunting for too many people. I think a lot can be learned and a lot can be gained just by taking a break, right? And just by taking a break where you are starting to learn some different tools, and not just a break where you're counting the days, 30 days without sugar and flour, not just, I'm going to not consume them for 30 or 60 days, right? Your focus is totally on just making it through day to day. Okay. But really thinking about, I'm going to take a break because I want to unwind without needing pizza at the end of the day. I want to be able to feel content and feel at ease without needing a tub of ice cream, right? So paying attention to learning those tools, and that may help you to develop stories for what it will mean to take a break, what it will mean not to consume sugar and flour for a period in your future that maybe don't look so bleak. Okay. Now, the second thing that holds people back and holds people or keeps people stuck in indecision is looking to our past to predict our future success, right? It's this idea of, while I failed before, I have tried before and it didn't work, so obviously I'm going to fail again. This is the absolute worst thing that you can do. To look at your past for evidence of your future and for evidence of your chances of success. It seems completely logical, okay? It seems logical that I would just look into my past to understand my future capabilities, okay? But here's the problem. Most people see failure as a sign that they cannot do something. Most people don't understand failure for what it is, which is part of the learning process. So we look at past attempts and we see that we didn't succeed, and we make that mean that we won't succeed. We make that mean that we are going to fail again, instead of understanding failure is part of learning. Any skill that you want to learn, any new skill, including how to decrease your desire, how not to cover up your emotions, how our thoughts create our emotions, but also any skill in the world, driving a car, riding a bike, whatever it is, it takes practice. It takes practice, you guys. And what it means is that you will not get it right on the first try. You will fail. This is part of learning. Otherwise, it wouldn't be learning, right? That really is part of it. But most people take the failures and make it mean that they won't succeed instead of seeing them as part of the learning process. And I will tell you, I cannot even count the number of times that I had tried to change my eating habits to lose weight. It was a lot. For decades, I was trying every new fad diet. And if I had used the past as an indicator of my success, I would have decided, well, it's not possible because I tried a lot and I failed a lot. And my past is telling me that I can't do this. But you really have to shift away from that mindset. And you really have to start to look at your failures as part of the learning process. You have to start to expect them. You have to expect there's going to be struggle. There is going to be setback. That is normal. That is part of learning. Okay, the third piece that keeps people stuck in indecision is the idea that you have to feel 100% certain, right? 100% certain that this is what you want to do. This is the right decision and it's going to be the best thing you ever did before you can actually test it out. I think that keeps so many people stuck, right? This idea that, well, I have to be completely certain that this is what I want to do. Because here is what is happening. Most people are in a tug of war. Most people, like, I really do, most people feel like they really don't like the consequences of sugar and flour. I really don't like the extra weight. I don't like how I feel. I don't like waking up bloated the next morning and regretting everything I ate. I don't like any of that. I'm embarrassed by my eating. I don't like feeling out of control. There are all these things that I don't like. But on the other side, there are a lot of things that you do like. You do like the way you feel when you eat sugar and flour. You do like feeling that you can unwind. You do like feeling more at ease. You do like feeling indulgent, right? So you have this tug of war, and people say, well, I can't do anything until I'm 100% certain. And it's not true, you guys. You can be in a place where you are still feeling like you're not totally certain and still take action. The problem is, I think, that people will tell themselves that they can't take any action, they can't take any steps towards what they want until they feel 100% certain. And that will keep you stuck. So the fourth piece that keeps people stuck in indecision, and this one I think is so crucial, and this is what held me back for so long, is that you haven't found yet a compelling reason. And that compelling reason is what is going to sustain you when you're not eating sugar and flour, right? And the reason that you have not found a compelling reason is this: you are ignoring the benefits that you get from eating sugar and flour. I did this too for a long time, right? I didn't want to pay attention to the benefits, right? I didn't want to look at the benefits. I thought that if I focused on the positive things, the things that overeating was helping me with, right? And for me, it was helping a lot with anxiety. It was helping with insecurity. It was helping with a lot of the negative chatter that I had in my mind. I thought that if I focus on the positives, that will be bad, right? I shouldn't think that there was anything positive. I should only pay attention to all the bad things. I should only pay attention to the regrets. I should only pay attention to the extra weight. I should only pay attention to doing things I didn't want to do when I was out socially. And that's what I thought. But it doesn't work like that. We can't ignore that you are getting a benefit. You can't ignore that piece. And when you ignore that piece, you are going to really struggle to come up with a compelling reason that's going to sustain you when you're not consuming sugar and flour. So I would use all the negative effects. I would say, well, my commitment is going to be fueled by all the negative effects that I get from sugar and flour, right? That's what's going to fuel my commitment. And it might work for a little bit, right? Because I sure would enjoy waking up and seeing the scale went down. I would enjoy feeling lighter. I would enjoy that I didn't have to worry about what I ate the night before, but there was no break from me, right? That's what overeating was for me. It was a break from myself. It was a break from my insecurity and my anxiety and feeling like I didn't fit in. It was a break from all the chatter in my head that told me I wasn't smart enough or good enough or pretty enough, right? It was a break from all of that. And I had no break from that. And so after a while, I just wanted my nights to go back to being an excuse to cut loose with pizza and ice cream and stop feeling stressed and stop feeling so unsure of myself and just have peace. And the problem was I kept thinking that not having a bloated tummy, fitting into a size 4 jeans, not having regrets, not worrying about what I ate. I kept thinking that that was going to be the compelling reason. But the other piece of it was that overeating was helping me tune out this really negative self-critic. Overeating sugar and flour for me for a long time was a perfect remedy to fix how I felt on the inside. And I didn't realize this because I wasn't looking at my reason for why I wanted to keep overeating and why I wanted to give up sugar and flour. I wasn't looking at those two reasons, side by side. Because when I put them down on paper and I looked at them side by side, all of a sudden it made sense, right? It made sense why the reason I wanted to take a break from sugar and flour couldn't stand up to the reason that I wanted to keep consuming sugar and flour. And it was because my reason to change my eating habits was just focusing on the negatives. It was, I'm sick of the extra weight and doing things that I'm embarrassed about or regret. Now, that seems like a pretty good reason on the face of it, right? It doesn't seem bad, right? It seems like it could be compelling, but it wasn't paying any attention to the reason why I wanted to keep overeating. And for me, the reason I wanted to keep overeating was because I wanted to drown out that hateful thoughts that I had about myself in my brain. And I thought that eating sugar and flour allowed me to do that because it was a perfect remedy to fix how I felt on the inside. When I looked at my answers head to head, right, it all of a sudden made sense to me. It made sense why my commitment was so flimsy. My motivation to stop seemed pretty good because I truly didn't like how I felt, right? I truly didn't like how I looked, but it could not compete with my reason to keep overeating. Because for me, distracting myself from the self-loathing was the most important. It really was, you guys. It was something that I had struggled with for so long in my life and feeling like I was unworthy and I didn't belong and I didn't fit in and I was just kind of weird, right? And so the idea that when I ate pizza and ice cream and popcorn, I would feel peace and I was normal and I didn't have to listen to any of those thoughts. Why would I want to let go of that? Right? When push came to shove, that compelling reason to keep overeating, it would always win. And so my commitment to change my eating for so long in my past was really flimsy. And I just had no idea because I had never looked at these two reasons side by side. I would ultimately choose peace in my brain over being bloated and regretful. It seems crazy to me now, but back then it made a lot of sense in my mind, right? So the strength of your motivation and commitment, and it comes down to this: can your reason for taking a break compete with your reason for keeping the status quo? And it works like this for everything. It's not just our decision to change our eating habits. It really is our commitment for anything, right? We have to look at the reason for why we're doing it versus the reason why we're keeping things the same. And if that reason to change your eating habits can't stand up to the reason for continuing to overeat, then it's going to be very difficult to stick with your commitment because it won't be important enough to you. You have to believe that you are getting more from changing your eating habits than from keeping things the same. And that is why when I work with people, I really encourage people not to focus on just counting days, right? I think that is such a fallacy, this idea of I just need to get a certain number of days. The problem is that most people, after a while, right, the 30-day cleanse or whatever, the days are not motivating, right? You get a certain number of days and you're just saying, okay, just one day to the next, just one day to the next. There has to be something bigger fueling it. After a while, it's just not exciting to cross days off your calendar. For me, when I finally put these two reasons, the reason why I wanted to keep overeating, and the reason I wanted to change my habit, when I finally put them on paper and I looked at them side by side, I realized that my reason for changing my eating habits just couldn't stand up. I started to really have to search and really had to dig and brainstorm and figure out, okay, what's it going to be, right? What will it be for me that is going to be compelling enough? And what I finally landed on and what worked for me is that I really wanted to be proud of who I was. That was actually very important for me. And I felt like learning these skills, learning how not to use sugar and flour as a crutch, learning how to rely on myself instead of covering up my emotions, that felt very connected to being proud about who I was. And that actually felt compelling. Now, the reason for you is probably going to be totally different. And the reason for all of my clients are usually very different. It might mean that they are really interested in just growing as a person. It might be that their compelling reason to change their eating habits is that they want to start to model the behaviors that they want to teach their children. And for some people, they really feel like they have a spiritual connection that they want to deepen. They want to deepen a spiritual connection with themselves, right? It doesn't matter what it is, right? It just has to be compelling to you. If it's not compelling to you, if it's not more compelling than continuing overeating, then guess what? You're going to keep overeating. Okay, friends, I know that was a lot today on indecision. So I just want to recap, right? The very best thing that you can do is make a decision either way. Really, honestly, right? Make a decision that you're going to take a break or make a decision that you're not. And that's fine too. But if you make a decision either way, I promise you, it will just save you so much mental energy. Really, right? You can just stop going back and forth and stop doing the pros and cons and just use that mental energy for something else. Also, stop using your past to predict your future. It really is a terrible, terrible way to predict your capabilities in the future, especially because so many of us really have an unfortunate interpretation of what failure means, right? We think it means that we're not going to succeed. And actually, failure is part of the process, right? Setbacks are part of the process. Also, waiting to take action by telling yourself that you need to be 100% certain. You can take action before you are 100% certain, right? Waiting to be 100% certain will keep you stuck, right? But the biggest thing is really be honest about how sugar and flour is helping you. What is it doing for you? What are the benefits? What are you getting from it? Because when you are really honest about how your eating is helping you, then and only then can you find a truly compelling reason for why you might want to take a break and try learning something new. Only then. Okay, friends, that's it for today. So let me know what you come up with for a compelling reason and get out of indecision. All right, see you all next week. Bye.